Thank you guys for tuning in to the channel today. I'm Curtis Merriweather. I am your government contracting host. As you already know, in 2020, I was named a game changer by the White House Policy Advisor for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And today, I'm serving as your government contracting business mentor. Now, real quick before we get into it, the purpose of this channel, we help entrepreneurs overcome business challenges by providing consultation, education, and training support. Now, we're unlike many of the other channels on YouTube because our education is underpinned by doctoral experience or doctoral education and practical experience. Now, before we get into our interesting conversation today, I want you to subscribe, share, and leave me a comment. Now, there was some fireworks on YouTube a few days ago. So I had to put together this amazing topic. So today, we're going to be talking about the middleman strategy. You know, there was some clapbacks on YouTube. A lot of so-called gurus got upset, and that's okay. But today, we plan to put this topic to rest. So today is a special treat. I got a surprise guest for you guys. He is new to some, and he is a veteran to others. So I'm going to welcome my co-host today, Mr. Guy Timberlake. Guy, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, brother Kurt, doing well, doing well. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, there was a lot of traction. Last week I did a video and it got a whole lot of people upset.
Kurt, you out there stirring the pot?
I wasn't trying to stir the pot, guy, but this pot got stirred. I put up the limitations and subcontracting clause. And I had people telling me that it wasn't true. And that the middleman strategy. So one guy told me I needed to have a conversation with him because there's another way to look at this. And I said, well, the FAR clause is quite clear. So I want to bring in my friend, my expert, Mr. Guy Timberlake. So before we jump into this topic, some of these folks may know who you are. Many probably don't. A lot of the folks who really been challenging this are brand new to the government contracting space, and they just don't know what they don't know. But today, our goal is to provide some education so that when you start evaluating your favorite guru, anything in government contracting needs to be safeguarded by the FAR. So that is our Bible. So, I've known you for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the audience.
I appreciate that. Well, Kurt, it's good to be on with you, man. It's been a little bit since we had a chance to do something like this, so I know we're going to have fun. But for those that don't know me, my name is Guy Timberlake. My friends and my customers, when I was still selling to the government, refer to me as Go-To Guy Timberlake. That was my tag, call sign, if you will, that I picked up working with the Navy and the Air Force back in the 90s. They called me Go-To Guy because they considered me dependable and reliable, and the name has stuck ever since. And again, just kind of going back in time, my journey in federal contracting started in 1988. So I was 23 years old, working for a company supporting the U.S. intelligence community, and that's how everything got started. So as of today, I've been doing this 35 years as a business owner, business developer, business leader, you name it. I've done it. Literally everything short of HR and finance in a company working for the U.S. government exclusively for small business all these years. And today, since 2004, my wife and I have run an organization called the American Small Business Coalition. And in short, we have helped companies in the federal sector, small, medium, and large, tap into over $5 billion in invoiced revenues, not contract ceilings, actual payables to them. And we do that using a community program. I'm not a consultant. We don't do hourly billing for anything. Everything we do is tied to either our community program, the classes we teach, and the cohorts that we facilitate for business leaders. And that's where we are.
Wow. And I heard a couple major things I want to highlight before we jump into this topic. I heard you say you've been doing this for 35 years. Did I get that correct?
I,
35
I
years.
can't even believe it has been that long. I mean, I go back to when you and I met, and I was still relatively new to the ASPC, at that time. But, I happened to look up at the clock the other day and saw the counters. I mean, it's been 35 years.
Wow. And you have helped clients make more than $5 billion in real dollars.
Real dollars, actual invoices, and those are the ones that we know of and can talk about. That doesn't include the stuff that we've done supporting companies that work in the Intel community, where we simply just don't have the ability to know what some of the outcomes were. And I'm okay with that, because for me, and you and I have talked about this many times over the years, it really is about the mission. You came out of government, so you lived on that side of it. I was always on the industry side as a contractor. And yes, this is about making money, creating wealth, generational and otherwise, but you got to know how to approach this the right way. This is not just a cash and grab kind of opportunity. You got to be committed to this. You have to want to come in and actually make a difference, because in the kind of the work that I know I did, some of the things that you supported when you were in government before, and even since you were in government, there are people's lives on the line. The
Absolutely.
kind of things that we supported, people lived and died based on the things that we were responsible for. So we don't treat this like any other business.
No, you're right. Let's just jump in. Do you remember? Do you remember when we first heard this? And I remember where we were. Do you remember when we first heard this concept called
Yes.
middleman strategy? What
Uh,
platform were we on?
so Kurt, so look, so I was 30 years into supporting this community before I ever heard the term middleman used that way. And that was you and I in Clubhouse during the pandemic, when Clubhouse, was an answer for a lot of people to be able to get information and collaborate and all these things. I mean, it was a great concept and a great platform for a lot of reasons. But as you and I have seen so many times over the years, anytime you create a situation where there is a lot of money in play, there's going to be a certain type of character, a certain element that will come out of the woodwork to exploit it for exclusively their benefit and no one else's.
You said that very diplomatically. So for those, and I think there's been a plethora of marketing and advertising dollars behind this concept. But for the listeners, as you understand it, what is the middleman strategy?
Curtis, let me say this. I remember the first time somebody said that to me. It may have been you, but I think it may have come up in a room you and I were hosting
Right,
on Clubhouse, and somebody asked us a question
right.
about middleman, if I remember correctly.
That's how I
And
remember it.
yeah, and I literally had no idea what they were talking about, and you kind of clued me in. So I did a little bit of investigating, and I went and visited some rooms of people that I was told were teaching this philosophy. And the things that I heard in these rooms, because I was quiet the first couple times, just wanted to collect facts. The middleman theory effectively is about going in to win federal contracts. Size, not the issue here. It's just winning a federal contract and literally having the ability to not do any of the work, to delegate it, subcontract it, whatever you want to call it, to someone else to deliver, to do the fulfillment, and then you simply submit invoices, take your piece off the top, and that's it. And to a certain extent, I understand that model, at a high level, because a lot of times that's what a reseller is
So the reseller is
in the federal government. But what I heard was not resale.
right.
In not it's not the channel program that you and I knew of when we were in the space. And so I literally had somebody explain to me, and I'm not going to say names, but I was in his room as he was describing this, literally heard him telling people, you can literally go win these contracts, small business contracts, go sit on the beach somewhere, punch a couple keys, submit your invoice to wide area workflow, or whatever invoicing system is being used, and just do your thing, do whatever you want to do. And I remember we had a conversation about that. And because I was blown away by what I heard. And I remember you laughed at me because you already clued in. You already knew what was going on. And I said, Curtis, there are really people out here telling people things that absolutely are non-compliant
Right.
with multiple elements of procurement regulations. And and the biggest one was simply the self-performance requirement. For anyone that is awarded a piece of work as a small business, there is a self-performance. And I actually brought that question to the floor in a clubhouse room with one of the people that you and I know has been espousing this philosophy. And they kind of hemmed and hawed and tried to backtrack a little bit. And I simply said, I don't think you're necessarily a bad person. I don't think you truly mean any harm, but the way that you are positioning this information, you're going to get people in trouble. All right. And whether it's SBA compliance, and Curtis, you and I know, people were doing this during the pandemic, the PPE and all this kind of stuff. You know, we know people that went to jail,
Right.
for things related to this. And so, all that said, the Middleman theory, that philosophy, and as you've been kind of keeping me updated now on just apparently how much fire this has caught, where it's now the next generation going out and doing some of this teaching on this philosophy. I'm just going to sit back and watch the DOJ roster on a regular basis and see how many names I can tick off of that are people basically going to jail or being
Right.
prosecuted for defrauding the government.
But someone told me it can't be illegal, Kurt, because I mean, look at all of these people who are teaching this strategy. And I said, the FAR is the FAR. I don't care who said it.
Well,
That
just
is.
because people teach it doesn't mean it's correct.
Oh, no. Here's another one. But a contracting officer told me it was legal.
Was it written down in the contract? All right. What was there? For me, the bottom line is this: if the U.S. government awards a contract using a set aside, all right, socioeconomic set aside, there is an inherent performance requirement for that company. Now, here's the trick, and this was one of the questions I asked that person in the room. I said, so are you saying that when you dole this out, when you give this contract to another company to do, are you ensuring that they comply with similarly situated? And he said, oh, that doesn't matter. Okay, but that is one of the elements of the FAR. And what similarly situated means for those listening and watching, if you are awarded a contract by the government as a woman-owned small business, the self-performance requirement is there. You have to do a certain amount of the work. You have to generate a certain amount of the revenue, for that contract. And unless you are able to bring another company aboard that is situated similarly to you, in other words, they are a small business and also in a similar socioeconomic group,
Correct.
as was stated in the award, then you can amortize it, as it were, spread that performance requirement across all the companies that meet that similarly situated status. But if you're a woman-owned small business, you can't sub most or all the contract to just a small business, or you definitely can't sub it to a non-small business. That will not fulfill the self-performance requirement.
And you're right. And then this is something else I've told. I'm gonna embellish the story just a little bit because I got a call recently, let's just say it that way, about someone who was I'm being very careful with my words, who was employing this strategy.
Yes.
So, and I'm gonna misrepresent the names and people to represent the point. So there's an individual, I'm not gonna say if it was male or female. There's an individual who reached out to me on a social media, I'm not even gonna say what platform it was, on a social media platform and said, hey, can I have a conversation with you? And I said, okay. And so we got on a Zoom. And when they was telling me the strategies that they were being taught, they explained to me that they were spending, and I'm going to embellish the numbers just slightly, just to protect the innocent. They were spending $50,000 a month.
Correct.
In contractors to their subs. And they were making $1,500 a month. And I asked them, I said, why would you do that? And they said, well, we were taught that as a subcontractor, as a prime contractor, you will never make the money that more money than the sub. And I said, well, you're taking all the risk because if this contract goes left, the government's going to hit you with, at a minimum, contract termination. But it could escalate to suspension, debarment, civil liabilities, and potentially jail time. So why would you take that risk and pay someone else 50 grand a month and only recoup $1,500 a month in profit?
So Curtis, here's the first issue with that mindset. And I remember you saying that to me, and I'm trying to remember a time on really any of the contracts that I was a prime on, whether working for other companies or my own company, where the majority of the money went to one or more subs for that contract. But that in itself, by saying that you never make more than the sub, automatically infers that you're not going to do the required amount of work.
Correct.
On the contract.
Correct. It's hugely problematic. And then, I had a person jump in my comments and, want to challenge me on this. And I asked the person, I said, how long you been doing this? Oh, a year. And then I find out from the same individual that I spoke with that the person who was in my comments challenging me was in the same training course with them. And they're teaching these strategies. Dude, this is just beyond comical. It's sad. I mean, the stories that I was told saddened me. Because these are people's lives. This is not a game. This is not a joke. But I want to post just briefly a post you put on LinkedIn. Now, well, let me say this. Part of the pushback we get on social media, we don't get any of this pushback on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a true business community. Right. We get pushback from so-called gurus, not so-called in quotes, and in the community who doesn't know. And we don't blame the community for not knowing. This is a new space for them. But my word of caution to newbies, read the FAR. And if you don't, and I'm not telling you to read the FAR from end to end because that'll put you to sleep, but get you a good government contracts attorney. Guy and I can recommend you to a few people like Stephen Coprint come to mind.
Absolutely.
Who understand the FAR and can help you navigate this process. But listen to someone tell me, I'm gonna listen to I said, well, you listen to the contracting officer who told you this, which I can't believe any contracting officer worth their salt would say something like this. I say, and they said, well, they got 30 years of experience. And so on this line, Guy has 35 years of experience, and I've been doing this for 26 years. Just two of us. but they had 5 contracting officers. But there's a problem in government right now where they don't have the workforce they used to. All of the institutional knowledge is going out when people retire. So a lot of your newer contracting specialists and officers don't know the rules. And this is a fact. There's been a lot of things written about this. And Guy, I mean, you even teach contracting officers. So, so you're more than credible to talk about this topic. But I want to post this thing that was on. I just put it on a nice background. But you posted this a week ago. And you said, for the record, the advice you hear on Clubhouse, YouTube, and other social media platforms about government contracting and the middleman approach to executing contracts will get you in trouble. SBA compliance trouble and DOJ. So for those who may not know that acronym, Department of Justice, this is basically where they lock people up. BOP is part of DOJ, Bureau of Prisons.
Yep.
This is
and FBI and all the other ones.
Right. The evidence that dispels the notion that you can blindly delegate execution of contracts awarded as small business or set-asides can be found in the language regarding the limitations on subcontracting here. He posted a link, same link I posted. And you'll be surprised, Guy, how many people tell me that those rules don't apply. And I'm like, just read it. Read it.
So let me say this, Kurt. So one of the things we talk about in our boot camp program, you and I, we've talked about this before too. The FAR is the law of the land. For most of the organizations that companies will do business with in the federal sector, not every organization, however, is subject to the FAR.
Correct.
But if you go look at the rules that they employ, they, gee whiz, look an awful lot like the FAR.
Correct.
They invoke some of the same procedures and same rules. And so anyone that says the rules don't apply, generally speaking, I guarantee they've never read any of it in earnest, and don't have any real understanding of what is required of them. But it's also not just the FAR in of itself, but it's literally the assertions that you make, which are now a matter of the federal code, all right, the U.S. code, which is a lot of that adopted into the federal acquisition regulations.
Right.
So the premise that this is a victimless or issueless activity is just wrought with issues, because again, you go sign up in SAM and create your profile, you're making assertions about ownership, your business structure, all these things. Every contract that every proposal that you respond to and every contract you accept has got a slew of clauses.
Correct.
Embedded throughout that are basically, if you don't read these, most people don't. If you don't read these, you don't know, honestly, if you're compliant or not. There are even issues where people were being held to rules that were left over from a previous contract, had nothing to do with what they were actually delivering. All right, shouldn't have been in there, but they signed the contract without reading it, so you're now bound by it. Right. And so this is the first issue. Government contracting is not difficult, and it's not at all impossible. Lots of people come into this business every day and generate a level of success. The ones that seem to have the most trouble are the ones that want to take the shortcuts.
Correct. No, you hit the nail spot on. And in the following of your post, you says no one I have met or heard speak about this approach has any real credibility in GovCon. If it sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. You say fraud, snake, or criminal.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. If federal contracting was that easy, then truly everyone would be doing it.
Correct.
But there are mid-tier and large companies walking away from federal contracting not this year, but years ago, because of some of the intricacies, the nuances associated with doing this. People come into this business. You and I have had this conversation many times over. The GSA schedule, the most well known contract vehicle in all of federal contracting. Everybody comes in, and I'm saying that very generally, but everybody coming to federal contracting, first thing they do, they want to go get a GSA schedule
Right.
without thinking at all about what the impact might be on the business they have outside of government contracting.
Right.
All right. Most favored customer clause is still there, for the GSA schedule. If you don't know what that is, call me, call Kurt. We'll tell you all about it. But the bottom line is you have to pay attention. You have to be intentional about coming to federal contracting. And I want to know any other marketplace in the world where somebody would go in with little to no information and then just start swinging for the fences.
Right.
All right. And it's just, and if that's an approach people take, it's stupid. It's irresponsible. You're not being a good steward of your own time and your own money.
Right.
And so, why people think they can just walk into the federal contracting and just start chopping away at business just like that without developing some baseline understanding of how things work is beyond me.
They do. They hire a coach. But as we know, all coaches are not created equally.
Right. Well, and let me say it this way, so I have never referred myself as an expert.
Everyone else
Right.
does.
Right. And you're the same way though. All right. We don't say we're experts. All right. I tell people I know some stuff. I know the rules. I've had successes and failures in this business over the years. I've seen a lot. But every time, barring maybe 2 or 3 in my 35 years, where somebody has walked up and said, I'm an expert in this,
they're usually not.
They're far from the truth. Far from the truth. Yeah. And so what it comes down to is, and I made that comment at the end of that post I did very specifically. I know personally some of the people who are out there espousing the middleman theory. I don't mean we're personal friends. I have had a conversation with them, on a professional and personal level, just to kind of figure out what's what and what's going on. I don't think some of the people that I've spoken to over the years are necessarily evil people or malicious.
I don't either.
I think they don't have enough information.
Correct.
And they're going with what they know, the truth that they have right now. Well, here's the deal. In federal contracting, Curtis, how many truths have you known in federal contracting since you first came in? All right, because I know for me, mine has changed almost on a daily basis.
Absolutely, because you as you spend time in this game, your understanding of things gets refined.
Absolutely.
And so we're not, and I think we both agree on this. We don't think that any of the people who are espousing this strategy are bad people. However, the information being espoused is dangerous, and it's false, and it could land you in jail. And that's the worst case scenario. But at a minimum, your contract could be terminated. I was talking to this person, and they have a serious issue going on, and we're doing everything we can to help them tip around the government not asking certain questions, because we know the triggers it could set. But when they reached out to their coach, they couldn't get any answers.
Well, so and you and I talked about this, and so let's say this on the light side of a situation like this, you might lose some money.
Right.
But then progressively it gets worse from there, because then you start running into the actual legal issues. And then all of a sudden your contract gets audited, or let's say another company challenges your size status or the size status of a sub or similarly situated or something like that. The minute the government looks into the situation, you're going to be exposed. Now you have a bigger problem. Now you are literally in a situation where you have been defrauding the government because you pursued and accepted a contract under the premise that you're going to comply with the rules associated with that contract and then chose not to.
Right.
Now, instead of just losing some money, now you are facing even more. There's potential fines, right? Losing a lot more money. There is prosecution that can result in jail time. Somewhere in between there is the government just, well, canceling a contract, termination for default, right, which leaves a black mark on your record. Going worse from there is if they then find out what's going on and you can't deliver, then they can do what's called a non-responsibility determination. And that's a bigger black mark, right? Because that's essentially the government saying you're not qualified to be a federal contractor. And then the ride is done pretty much at that point.
And that person I talked about, that's where they close to being are.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah, and I hate that because it didn't have to happen that way. So when we talked about this, first thing first, had that person gotten even mediocre advice as opposed to the the evil opposite of mediocre, all right, which was simply just really, really bad, irresponsible advice. Had they just gotten mediocre advice, they'd be making a lot more money on this and also would have possibly found a partner they could work with compliantly so they would not be at risk of being exposed for non-compliance.
Right. And the bigger companies know this game and will play it on you and will maximize on your ignorance.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Knowing that you're going to potentially lose it because they know the rules.
Knowledge is power. If you got the knowledge, you got the power. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I tell people business is war. And just because we're on the same contract don't mean we're friends. We don't do business with people just because, I like them. No, it's about making money. And
Absolutely.
So the other side knows the rules better than you do and will sometimes take that rule, that knowledge they know and exploit you.
Sure. Absolutely. No, and you just got to assume that's going to be the case in more than half the time.
Right.
But and you talked about it already. I mean, one of the best resources out there, Curtis, and we have a lot of folks we know that we can turn people on to. But one of the things I recommend everybody out there do is go to smallgovcon.com. And that is the website for the law firm that Curtis was talking about, Co-Prince Law. And our friends over there create a lot of content that is all based around case law and protests and policy changes and things like that. And they are very specifically a government contracting law firm for small business. That is their expertise. And I've known this firm since before they started because I knew Steve Co-Prince when he had just left, another law firm and was just starting this one back in Kansas. So they are rock solid. They are absolutely awesome. They're founding members of my organization. So we've known them that long too. But the bottom line is you can get educated really quickly looking at information from what I'm going to say are the true experts, the practitioners who make a living knowing this stuff and understanding it so that they can inform others to help them stay on the right side of their contracts and their relationships. So I would tell everyone, smallgovcon.com, check it out. If you go in there, start typing in limitations on subcontracting, and you'll see the articles come up that are talking about what Curtis and I are talking about.
Quite a few of them came up on
Absolutely.
website. And I'm up, and I have not talked to Steve, but every time I have talked to Steve, he has been more than helpful. He's a fair guy, and the job of the attorney is to help you figure out how to navigate this space ethically, legally, and safely.
Yep.
So don't listen. I mean, listen to me and God, but trust but verify. And this is any guru. So I don't care who you work with. I don't care how great their marketing may or may not be. Know the rules for yourself. Because here's the reality. Me, Guy, or your so-called favorite guru, when it all goes down, are not going to be standing beside you once it hits the fan. That is a fact. Look for your coach. once you mess up. And because they've given you bad guidance, I can promise you they're not going to be there.
Yep, exactly. So one thing I was going to mention, and this is, you know, touchy subject to a little bit, but let's talk about social media for a minute.
Okay. Okay.
So there's all these platforms out here, and Kurt, I think after I left Clubhouse, the only thing I'm on is LinkedIn.
Right.
I don't use Twitter, Facebook, nothing else, just LinkedIn, and there's a reason for it. And I'm gonna drop a couple names right now to make this point. So all the experts, all right, are on various platforms. But Curtis, last time I checked, you got a pretty robust LinkedIn profile, my friend. Okay, and you're pretty active out there. The federal sector and federal contracting, LinkedIn is the primary platform. And to that point, just to kind of emphasize this, I've been on LinkedIn since 2004. Mark Amtower, my friend I'm going to talk about, has been on LinkedIn since 2004. Mark Amtower, personal friend of mine, I refer to him as the godfather of government marketing. He is the guy that basically, when it comes to marketing in the federal sector, I mean, he has forgotten more than a lot of us will ever know.
Correct.
Mark does a census every year for the past several years, tabulating how many feds are on LinkedIn. Now, I haven't done a census, on any of the other platforms, but I'm pretty convinced it ain't going to look like this. On LinkedIn, there are, as of this year, he just did the new census for 2023, 2.7 million people, individuals,
Wow.
who are affiliated or associated with a federal agency. That means if you go look at their profile, it will have the name of a department or an agency in one of their job descriptions in there. So 2.7 million, that's an increase of over 300,000 from last calendar year. So here's the other part. If you ever been on LinkedIn, you'll see a thing out there called a company page. It's where you can go find my organization and Curtis's or Lockheed Martin or places like that. But you can also find Department of Justice or Department of Health and Human Services. And as of this year, they had an increase of 5 company pages from last year to this year for a total of 556 company pages on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Now, here's the trick. I'm bringing this up because if there's an epicenter of people who are likely your customers or buyers on a certain platform, I would kind of lean to the fact that there's probably other people who are credible and knowledgeable on that same platform. So, nothing against YouTube or, Vimeo and all the other platforms out there. I just don't use them. I am exclusively federal contracting. Everything I do exists on LinkedIn or my own website. And so where I'm going is do a little research, understand where your information is coming from. If you look into the backgrounds, even a little bit of some of the people that are giving you this information, you're not going to find a lot of depth in their background that demonstrates they've been doing this for any length of time or actually have been in a situation where they would have acquired this knowledge. If you look at my profile, you look at Curtis's, going back 20 to 35 years, all you're going to see is stuff related to the federal government or federal contracting. And that in itself is not any guarantee of knowledge or accuracy of knowledge. But to Curtis's point, the person that's challenging him, who's been doing this for a year, I'll take my bets on Curtis in that any conversation that ensues. And so it's due diligence. If you're going to make an investment, if you're going to spend time and money trying to go pursue something, do it the right way. Just because something is less expensive or more flashy doesn't mean that it's the solution you need.
No, that's valid. And to your point, LinkedIn is a business to business, business to government platform,
Correct.
whereas our Facebooks and Instagrams and TikToks are more for the everyday customer. So, you posted and I posted about this strategy. The government contracting community at large love the content.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
we catch hateration and dispute among the folks who don't know. But I mean, if you go look at my post, you'll see contracting officers, executive vice presidents, CTOs of very large organizations. You look at guys post, you'll see equally powerful people who are siding with us. So someone's right and someone's wrong. And I'm gonna go with the LinkedIn community versus what YouTube and Instagram is saying. That's just me.
And again, like I said, for me, it just I hate to see anybody lose,
Right.
especially when it's senseless. And
Right.
it's because, I mean, I'm saying this, they've got to take some responsibility for what's happening too. They made a decision to go in a certain direction and it didn't pan out. That can happen to any of us at any time.
Correct.
But it's about the due diligence. And government contracting, I said earlier, is not hard. It's not extremely difficult. What's hard though? It's the first steps. It's actually figuring out what resources are viable.
Right.
And you and I have seen this time and time again because again, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars every fiscal year. And the peripheral effect of that is you could be on the sideline in federal contracting and do a few $1,000,000 a year, right?
Easy.
Without ever being a contractor.
Right.
And so that's one of the less desirable subcultures that's been created in here, is that because federal contracting is so big and so impactful, that it opens the door for opportunists to come in and play on the lack of knowledge
Correct.
of folks who were trying to legitimately come and grow themselves and grow their business. And
No,
and that's what we're seeing right now.
right. And everyone has a gimmick. So, as we get ready to wrap this up, my thing and my caution, I definitely want you to, one of the things I want to do on this platform is because one of the things I recognize, guy, is there's just a void of knowledge. So what I plan to do with my platform is start showing what is not happening on YouTube is where do you get the knowledge? Where did I go?
Yep.
And I was learning, and it's people like Guy Timberlake that I hooked up with and got me on my way. His organization is phenomenal. One of the things Guy and I do different things, but one of the things that, and I want to make sure we put his information up here because I want you guys to reach out to him at the asbc.org. He just rebranded. Phenomenal organization. When I was starting my business, man, more than a decade ago, we had made a couple $1,000,000. No, we thought we were hot stuff back then. But then we got a guys organization. And one of the things, God does a lot of good stuff, by the way. But one of the things at that time that helped me the most was Guy created an environment that put me around other me's, bigger me's, but other me's. So I got around, I won't call any names, but I got around some companies that were further along than me, and we were able to do subcontracting opportunities legally. And that's how I learned how to write proposals. That meeting Guy and getting involved with the American Small Business Coalition, doubled our business in months, not years, because part of it is getting in the deal flow. So, you can spend all your time chasing proposals out on sam.gov under contract opportunities. If you take it in my classes, you know how I kind of feel about that. I talk about being more strategic, looking for opportunities before they show up there. However, you do what you know. But Guy's organization was instrumental because it started putting me around players, start putting me around people who are actually moving and shaking. And that investment of them in me, because they wanted me to sub or provide, because none of these companies can do all this work themselves. They're in especially large business. They're incentivized to do business with small business. So it put me in a situation where I was now able to partner with organizations I probably would have never met. And because of that rapport building through the organizational events that the ASBC was doing, it accelerated my time frame. So one of the things we want to do on this platform is introduce the community to people like the guys, to people like the Steve Co-Princes, so that you're navigating this, you can do it safely. And you may make some different mistakes, but maybe hopefully you won't make the same mistakes that I make.
Well, and Curtis, you've heard us talk about this before, and we do this in our boot camp program, the coaching program. One of the key words that I overuse the heck out of it all the time, but it is simply the best word, is context. And we talk about context because I wasn't born in federal contracting. I was 23 years old when I started. I remember walking around my company that I worked in for the first year with a notepad, just writing down words to the best of my ability that people said, and then going back later saying, "What does that mean?" There's a lot that occurs in federal contracting that really doesn't exist anywhere else. And so for that reason, whether it's a process or a word or an activity or an organization, if it doesn't exist anywhere else, there's no reason for me or anyone else to have been familiar with it, excuse me, if I've never been in federal contracting before. And so it's just like, Curtis, we talk about NAICS codes and the different types of contracts and contract vehicles and all these things. There are very few things that we touch on a regular basis that exist in the same use case outside of federal contracting. So people need to give themselves grace. You're not going to walk in the door on day one knowing how to do certain things or understanding how things work. You need to you need to invest in yourself and in your future. And it starts with getting good information and developing context so that you can understand other information that comes to you.
No, that's key. That's key. But as we wrap up, I want to make sure, matter of fact, you put your stuff back up. I want to make sure you guys reach out to the American Small Business Coalition. Send Guy a note. Guy has great prices for you to be able to invest with minimal pain. Now, of course, you can always scale up, but you can start relatively inexpensively to start investing in that education. See, on this platform, I'm not, if I sell a class, great, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to make sure that you get the information you need to be successful. Government contracting, as many of you guys know, literally changed my life. So the thing I want to do now is just pay it forward. So, God, thank you for coming on. I know you're in high demand,
Oh
and
man, look, I always got time for you. You know that.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. Anything you want to tell the people before we go, sir?
you know what, Curtis? I appreciate the platform. I appreciate being able to get together and kind of share some knowledge, with everyone else, and you and I talk about some of our experiences. I'll say the last thing I'll mention is this. You need to be careful. You need to again exercise some basic due diligence. And there's a lot of folks, a lot of groups on LinkedIn. There are organizations out there, the PTACs, now the Apex Accelerators, Co-Prince Law, organizations like this that you can go to that will at the very least point you in the right direction. Even if they don't have the answer you're looking for, they'll get you connected into the right part of the community. And right now, what's happening is people are in a part of the community that, as far as I'm concerned, just doesn't have any credibility. So you need to you need to boost your network. You need to increase the quality of your network so you can increase the quality of your opportunities.
No, that's good, bro. That's good, man. Well, this has been a great conversation. This should at least demystify some of the process and give you some guidance. And want you guys to be careful. All gurus are not created equally. It's not just about buying the course, and it doesn't matter who it is. It's about the outside support. Once you get the course, can you get a hold of your mentor? Can they address the rough questions? And if they
Right.
don't know the answer, can they get you a legal, viable answer that won't find you in jail? So it's not just clicking and paying, but what is the support? First of all, what kind of knowledge are you getting in the class? And then what kind of support are you going to receive? And so I know what I do, and I know what Guy does. And on this platform, you'll see people like guys that I have worked with, that I trust, that are not, used car salesmen or snake oil salesmen. They're going to do what they say, and they're going to stand behind their word. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to introduce my community to Guy Timberlake.
Well, hey, Curtis, man, look, you keep doing what you do because, the proof is in the pudding. Anyone that does any due diligence on you knows where you came from, and they know where you've been. And so I'm going to tell everyone that if you're listening to Curtis right now, listen to him. Truly listen. Hear what he is telling you, because that's what you need. That's what's going to help you the most. you know, we're here, as the American Small Business Coalition. We're a small business just like you are. We've been doing this now for 19 years. As the ASPC, it's my wife and I and our daughter, and we're out here trying to do the right thing, having fun at the same time, but doing the right thing. And you know what? If you want to have a conversation, reach out to me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email, whatever you want to do. I'm not going to consult with you. It's not what I do, but I will tell you what resources, what are the different paths that you can take. I may be the right answer sometimes within my organization, and sometimes I won't be. And I'll tell you a good resource or multiple good resources for you to pursue that won't be a waste of your time and money.
That's good. That's fair. That's fair. Well, Guy, thank you so much. Hey, for you all who are still tuning on, if you have not already, subscribe, please subscribe, share, leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until next time.